up and welcome back, everyone. We are the Weary Writers. I'm Alex and I live in Los Angeles, California.
I am Jay Lawrence and I live in Berlin. Today we're going to be talking about plotting versus discovery writing. But before we get into that topic, Alex, we are a week out from NaNoWriMo. Tell me how you're doing, where you're at. Have you written or worked on your project anymore?
I have not written at all. I don't think I've written since about like the 25th of November, actually, because I was not doing any writing those last couple of days of Nano. But I have been thinking about my story, and I had another big epiphany on Sunday night. It was this plot hole. I've just been filling in plot holes lately. It was this plot hole that I've had since the beginning, and I've been desperately trying to fill and couldn't really think of it. And then it came to me on Sunday night again while I was getting ready to go to bed. So I had to like text myself really quickly so I wouldn't forget it. Smart. But yeah, I think it's going to help me immensely going forward. So what about you? You had a really strong finish to Nano. So in the week since, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I did have a big push at the end of Nano and it took it out of me. For the couple of days following that, I had to just catch up on general life stuff, things that I've been neglecting so that I could write, like housework and shaving my legs and prepping food. So that took me to the end of last week. And come Saturday, I just completely crashed and I slept for about 3 days. I slept and I read and I was just completely burnt out. But yesterday I was able to hit back on the horse and start working again.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask you. So we ended Nano. It was last Tuesday, and we had our little live stream. It didn't quite go very well on YouTube, but we continued it on Instagram. And we had some goals at the end of that. So what were your goals finishing up Nano, and how have you stuck to them? Have you even revisited them at all in the last week?
Yeah, so I'm smiling because I remember saying my goals out loud and you literally telling me that it was a long shot, and you were correct. My goals that I had set,
to be realistic.
Yes, the goals that I had set out were to finish my Nano project, so finish the first draft, which probably requires another 40,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
And also to finish editing my short story anthology that I've been working on for ages. And I wanted to finish both of these large projects by the end of Q4, which is the end of this month. And in addition to that, I wanted to launch my mailing list and my brand and my logo. So I had huge items that I was trying to tick off by the end of the year. And I think over the last couple of days, I've reassessed what I am capable of with the time that I have. And I've had to cross some things off of my list, which have left me a little bit heartbroken. I wanted to hit all of those targets, but I needed to be a little bit realistic and take a step back.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have lofty goals, but at the same time, you need to kind of view them through this lens of these probably aren't going to get done when I want them to get done.
Yeah. And I think that I think I had said those goals because I was riding the high of the end of Nano and having one Nano. That month showed me a lot of my capabilities in terms of production. I set a lot of personal bests for word count in a day and consistency, writing multiple days in a row. So I thought, you know what, I could do all of it and I can do it all in a month. And
then you crashed.
Then I crashed for 3 days because I had burned so hard at the end of it and I needed to recover. And so now we're filming this Wednesday, the 8th. So 8 days into December, which is the month that I needed to get all of this done. And, I've written about 1,000 words and I've edited maybe 20 pages.
I mean, it's 1,000 words that you didn't have before, and it's 20 pages edited that you didn't have before. So I think you're doing great.
Thanks. What about you? What were the goals that you set at the end of our live stream, and how are you doing on them?
So I haven't put any of them into practice, but because I kind of got off track with Nano, especially in the last couple of of like the last week and the last few days, I set the goal for myself that I wanted to kind of create like a weekly schedule and kind of a writing routine, working in, us doing these video chats around the writing. And even though I haven't really put it into practice yet, I have a tentative schedule for myself. So I think what works best for me is, I wanted an idea day, like a world building day where it's just planning and plotting and working on, the story as a whole. So that's going to be Sunday for me, because it seems like all of my epiphanies happen on the weekend. So I should just make the weekend the day when I work on that kind of stuff.
Roll with it.
Exactly, whatever works. And then so Thursday, Friday, maybe Saturday, and then Monday and Tuesday are going to be writing days. So I haven't written yet, but those are the ideal days that I'm going to do it on.
But it sounds like you have a plan. So should we dive into our topic?
Yes, let's do it. Talk about plotting versus discovery writing.
So Alex, why don't you start us off with telling us what the difference is between planning and discovery writing?
So I actually had to do a little bit of research for this, because I think as a writer, trying to think about the way that I write and trying to pin it to one of those two things was really difficult for me, because I actually do both. But I think the difference between plotting and discovery writing. So when you are plotting, you outline and you plan and you get all of that stuff out. You work out all of the beats to your story before you ever put any kind of words to page. You don't start writing your story until you have planned all of it out. And so discovery writing is obviously the exact opposite of that. You start writing and you have scenes and you have your characters, but you don't really know what the beats of the story are. You don't really know where the story is going until you just start doing it. So I think that's the main difference between plotting, being a plotting writer, and being a discovery writer.
But there are common misconceptions to the two fields, and it's a debate. It's a topic that's debated a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean, just like you were saying in one of our previous videos about Nano being a content generator, I think the debate between being a plotter and a discovery writer is definitely another one of those things that's a content generator, and people like to, I think it's a very clickbaity topic too, right? Like, all pantsers or discovery writers are bad and this is why you shouldn't do it, and there's my cat. So it's this huge kind of debate in the writing community, but I think a large part of that debate is really just for show, because sure. I think the majority of people are really somewhere in between. You're not entirely a plotter and you're not entirely a discovery writer. But some common misconceptions that I've come to see, and again, this is mostly, I think, just people trying to do like a straw man argument against the other kind of writing. So plotting, people who are touting being a plotter and being very against discovery writing will say that when you're plotting, you know where your story is going, but if you are a discovery writer, then your plot just ends up being a big jumbled mess and your story isn't organized. And then for people who are discovery writers or pantsers trying to tout that way of writing and being very against plotting writing, they say that if you know where your story is going, then you're going to get really bored writing it and you're not going to be motivated because you know how it ends. With both of the arguments against each, I think it's just I think it's kind of silly.
I think another argument that discovery writers make against plotters is that it doesn't leave room for the story to take a creative turn that's not within the confines of the plot.
Yeah, that if you have an outline, then your story is very rigid and doesn't have room for changing that outline.
So you've talked about misconceptions from one camp to another and arguments against one way or another. But I want to talk a little bit about just general misconceptions. One that I see argued a lot is that one is inherently better than the other, which I don't think is true. I think that both have there are both very valid methods, and it depends on the writer and it even depends on the project.
Exactly.
And in addition to that, I think another misconception is that one or the other or both are some sort of magic pill that will make you a better writer or make writing easier. They're strategies and they're tools that you use in the writing process, but writing is still hard.
Oh yeah.
And I have personally fallen prey to this misconception, especially in the beginning. I struggled because I had seen a lot of people posting about plotting. I'd seen, save the cat advertisements and seen people post their beat sheets and felt like I was
Doing it
behind.
wrong.
I was doing it wrong. And so I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time and a lot of money on trying to learn how to be a plotter, and it was an uphill struggle for me the entire time. And it took me a long time to realize that that's just not the kind of writer that I am.
Mhm.
And chasing that sort of magic pill that would make writing easier for me because everybody else is doing it this way turned out to hurt me rather than help me. It's helpful for some people to have those kinds of resources.
Mhm.
But I think it's important to know yourself and how you work first, and explore the avenues that will enhance the strengths that you have instead of trying to strengthen your weaknesses, which is going to take a lot longer and a lot more energy.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I've always kind of had a problem with is with any method that you try
Yeah.
out with writing, save the cat, whatever it is, there are going to be pros and cons. And those pros and cons are going to be different for every writer. So watching different writers explore different methods, I think could be really beneficial
Yeah.
rather than posting, just straight how to's, because
Yeah.
obviously those are only going to work for a certain number of people.
Yep. How-tos that say this is the best way to go about writing a novel.
Yeah, again, like the clickbaity kind of titles and things
Yes.
like that.
I also think it's important and would be helpful for people to post a little bit about themselves and how they work so that viewers or people who would be looking at the content would know
Mhm.
upfront if their work style
Is
is
similar.
aligned. Yeah. So on that note, Alex, what is your writing style? Are you a plotter or are you more of a discovery writer?
So, I mean, in the beginning, when I was just kind of starting getting into, AuthorTube and watching different people's videos, I was very tempted to call myself just a plotter, and that was the end all be all, because I've definitely had those stories where I have a very clear picture of all of my characters and their arcs and what the endpoints are. And it's very easy for me to make an outline of that. But that's not all of my stories. Like we were saying before, it depends on the project that you're working on. Some projects are really easily outlined, and then others aren't. So for me, I kind of go back and forth in between the two. So like sometimes I need to plot a story out and I will take copious notes before I ever put words to page. And then sometimes I just have like a scene in my head and I'm not really sure where that scene fits into the story or really who the characters are, but I know that I have to write it down because it's the thing that inspired me to write the story in the first place or whatever it is. So I definitely use both methods, sometimes simultaneously. Like
Mm-hmm.
especially writing the project that I'm working on now, high fantasy. I took notes for about 6 months straight before I ever started writing. But then once I did start writing, I was, experimenting with, okay, I'm going to try this chapter from this character's perspective, but what if I wrote it from this other character's perspective? So I'd write things multiple times, kind of just trying to discover what I felt was best for the story. So for me, it depends on the project. And sometimes, even within the same project, I'm using different methods. Just whatever in the moment is convenient and whatever I feel is working for the story. What about you? What methods do you use?
So I am much more of a discovery writer. I very rarely plot out the stories that I write, mostly because, especially for longer pieces, the idea of having to sit down and figure out the entire structure of the story before I have all of my characters like fully in mind, before I have the vibe of the story, it stresses me out and it kind of leaves me paralyzed and I don't get anything done. For me, plotting just doesn't work. I can do it on a smaller scale So if I am getting stuck in my discovery, but I know the immediate next scene or the next two scenes, I can plot those out ahead a little bit, like
Hmm.
kind of just a rough outline of it. And then I can go from there. And that sometimes helps to organize my thoughts. But I never really can go much further beyond that. And that being said, I think that to your point, you use whatever strategy you need to get words on the page. I'm not going to sit here and say that one method is better than the other or that I don't use both. I will
Yeah.
use anything that I can to get the project done.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because like we were saying, writing is hard. And
Exactly.
so nothing is a magic pill, but if something is going to help you in the moment, then that's great. And
Yeah.
it's the appropriate method for that particular part of your story. And
Yeah.
it's not like it's better than any other method. It's just that's the one that helps you when you're writing.
Exactly. And so for me, majority of the time it's discovery because I find that I have the best ideas when when my fingers are flowing and I'm sitting in the story and I've got the vibe of the story. It kind of just flows out naturally and I can let it be organic instead of trying to what I feel like make the story fit into a skeleton that I have pre-made.
Hmm.
It just doesn't work for me.
And that's okay.
And
That
that's
is
okay.
totally okay. So, on that note of using all of the tools you have available to you to get stuff done and get words on the page, what are your goals for this next week of writing?
What do I want to get done next week? Um,
Everything, all the
every,
things.
no, not all the things. I have crossed things off of my list. I'm
Yeah.
being much more realistic now. I have picked the goal that I want to focus on, which is completing the edits for my anthology. It has dragged on for much longer than it should have. And I think it's because it's my first big project and it's
Mhm.
taken me so long. It's kind of a labor of love, but the finish line is so close. And so I
Yes.
really want to get the first round of edits done by the end of December. So I need to get into that editorial mindset. I need to remember that what I have down is a first draft and that revision is a very important and wonderful process. And I am hoping to have, by the next time we speak, maybe 50 pages edited.
That's awesome. I think that is definitely a doable goal for the week.
Thank you for your approval. What about you? What are your goals for next week?
So I've been meaning to do this for several weeks and I just haven't done it yet ever since I kind of like figured out that my story was similar to the Helen of Troy Trojan War story. I really want to watch Troy again with Brad Pitt and Orlando Bloom. But no, I want to watch that story again just to kind of I don't know, just to kind of get the beats because I'm certainly not going to read the Iliad and the Odyssey in the next week or even in the
No.
next month.
And I
So
don't think
yeah,
it's going to help with your novel anyway.
I don't think it's going to help either. So I just kind of want to refamiliarize myself with a telling of the story. And obviously, I'll just be cruising the Wikipedia page for the Trojan War as well. And I want to get some words on the page. I don't know how many, but I do want to probably have at least two writing sprints where I'm dedicating, 20, 30 minutes to writing. And we'll see what comes out. I'm not going to hold myself to a specific word count, but yeah, I think two writing sessions this week will do it.
Well, I wish you luck. I know
Thank you
you
so
can do
much.
it. If
Thank
you
you.
want to if you want to do any sort of sprinting together, we could do a live stream sprint
Yeah,
sometime during the week.
on Instagram, I'm sure we could do that. I think a lot of people would probably be interested in doing some catch up writing as well. So, uh, thank you so much for joining me and talking about plotting versus discovery writing. And
Always.
to everybody else out there, we wish you happy writing.
Happy writing.